All right, welcome to another episode of Singles Chat Reloaded. All right, I am so glad to have you all here on a Saturday afternoon. We are here every first Saturday of the month at noon Eastern Time. Singles Chat Reloaded. This is a subset of Becoming a Bean. And if you've been watching us for a while, you know that Becoming a Bean is all about helping you, inspire you, motivate you, push and pull you, instruct you, teach you into your being, into your purpose so that you can live life abundantly. And today I have my Singles Chat Reloaded, which is a subset of Becoming a Being that's more so focused on the singles in relationships and what's on their mind other than just wanting to get married, because there's more on their mind than just wanting to get married. So we're here every first Saturday to have these conversations of the things that are on the singles' minds and the questions that they have and the things that they want to talk about and the things they want to do and achieve. Today is part 2 of Forever Relationship. All right. So back in June, when we launched Singles Chat Reloaded, we had a topic called Forever Relationship. How do you know when it's time to go? I think it's time to move on, but how do you know it's time to go? And that conversation was good. All right. If y'all didn't listen to part 1, y'all need to go back after this. Don't leave me now. Stay, but go back after this and listen to part 1. Part 1 was so good. We went way over our time because we just couldn't stop the conversation. And then I had some feedback that, hey, we need some closure. Some things were not answered. We didn't get to really talk about everything. Can you do a part 2? And of course, you know me. I love my audience. I'm here to serve you. So I'm going to give you what you asked for. Part 2, Forever Relationship. What do you know? It's time to go. That's what we're going to talk about today. All right. Let me go ahead and let you know about my panelists. They are great. I pick great panelists. I think I have a knack for this. Maybe I need to really hone in on this, because every time I have these Facebook Lives, I am so impressed with the people I pick. But anyway, I love them all. I think this is going to be a great conversation. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. If you could just, from starting from me over on the top, and then we'll go to the bottom, tell them who you are, where you're from, what you do, and your, what do you call it, relationship status. All right, that's what we'll do. It's all on you, Orlando.
Good afternoon, Orlando Denard. Let's see, I'm from Cincinnati. I lived in St. Louis for about 10 years and returned back to Cincinnati. I work in the sales industry, the education side of admissions. And then I have 2 companies. I have a company called Pumas and Pumps, which is a pole fitness. And then I have a company called Divine Entertainment, which is a production company.
Thank you. I think I need them cools and pumps. All right, Joy.
Hello, my name is Joy Strong. I work in the healthcare field, and I like to help people, but I like to do things behind the scenes.
And we need you to come to the front. Thank you very much, Larry.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Larry Scott. I am married. I've been married now for 11 years. I am an entrepreneur. Me and my wife run a couple of businesses where my wife does the bakery business, and I myself sell men's apparel. And I'm happy to be with you this afternoon. So I can't wait to get started.
I can't wait either. I never know what you might have in store for me mentally, but I'm always excited. Madison.
Hi, everybody. My name is Madison, and I work in the healthcare industry as well. I just moved over from the pharmacy to the business side of things. So like Joy, I kind of like to be in the background as well. This is actually my first live session discussing relationships, but I definitely have a passion for it. So I'm excited as well to get into some things. My current relationship status, I'm in a relationship. So hopefully I can provide some perspective from that aspect as well as from when I was single. So let's get to it.
That is all I need to hear. She said, let's get to it. All right, y'all. So if you know me, I ask questions, but we're going to have this conversation because I just really want to know from other people's perspectives. Last time we had this conversation, oh my gosh, we talked a lot about a lot. I mean, we talked about, loving people through where they are, but being able to set boundaries, knowing where you should go, working on yourself in order to make the right decisions when you're choosing. And there's just so much more that we can get into, but I'm just going to start the conversation off easy and just ask my panelists that are on here today, I'm just going to assume, because I think everybody who's been in a relationship has to decide at some point, should I stay or should I go? So tell me from your perspective, when you've had to make that decision, how hard was it for you to make that decision of whether you were going to stay or if you decided I'm leaving? And then what were the factors that said to you, you know what, I'm done. I got to go. I can't stay here anymore. So that's where I want to start. Any one of you. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
I'll go first. For me, part of my deciding factor was when I had enough. Enough is enough. So when I say enough is enough, I felt like I've done all I can. We've talked, we've had conversations about it. If he felt like there were some things that I needed to change, and I felt like, hey, I don't need to change this. I don't see the problem with it. And we just couldn't get past that. Sometimes, hey, all right, it's okay. Sometimes you have to step back, take a break, just to get help or to see it from a different perspective, not just from your eyesight. So. Yeah.
So Joy, were you saying that was a deal breaker? It was a deal breaker that made you decide that you were going to go, like you knew this is a deal breaker for me. This is not something I have the capacity to deal with or that I want to deal with or put up with, and therefore I need to go. Is that what you're saying?
Not sometimes it could be a deal breaker, and sometimes it could just be something as in, okay, you got an attitude problem and you're not fixing it. Like, no one wants to be in a relationship and, you feel like I always have an attitude and I feel like I don't have an attitude. For me, that can be a deal breaker because, again, somebody's happy, someone's not. So, but again, we're just in a relationship. We're not in a marriage. So it's a little different. Like, okay, look, maybe we need to break up.
Go ahead, Madison.
Okay. Just to piggyback off of Joy, I'm very logical and analytical when it comes to relationships. So I just take it from an aspect of, okay, if I have something as far as an issue in a relationship, I try to tackle it head on. Like, why are we having this issue? Let's have a discussion. What do you think the outcome should be? Should we continue if we don't come to a resolution? Like, how can we resolve it? So I think a lot of these issues that happen in relationships, if it's not what I would consider a deal breaker, which that's a whole nother topic of what is considered a deal breaker. But I think a lot of things can be resolved if you have the same goal in mind. Like, why are we in this relationship? Where is it heading? And I think if you establish those things in the beginning and issues do come up, you can talk through them or work them out. I think once you get to a point where you guys aren't heading in the same direction and you have different, I guess, goals, eventually, then that's when it becomes, I need to step away from this relationship. It's not heading in a direction that we want to go in.
I think that might be true. I think Larry was about to say something. I think that might be true though, because for me, I'm gonna speak for me, and I talked about this yesterday on my live. When I was dating my husband, he wanted me to. I kept wanting to know, like, what do you see in your future? Like, do you see marriage in your future? Like, I don't necessarily want to know. I'm not asking you, do you see you marrying me in your future? Like, we just been dating for a couple months now. We've been seeing each other for a couple months. We're getting to know each other. We haven't even made anything official. But for me, we were going out. So I wanted to know, like, is this someone I should spend time with? Is this someone that I need to just keep you in the friend zone because we're not headed in the same direction? He didn't like that question. And he kept telling me that I need to go with the flow. And I'm like, I'm not going to go with the flow. I need to know so that I don't waste my time. I've already been down this road several times. And I now know in my experience and in my maturity that I need to know, where is this headed? What is your vision for your life? Because if we don't have the same vision or the same end goal, then why should I even bother dating you? Why should I get my feelings all wrapped up in you? And I want to get married, but you never want to get married. And then I'm just going to hope that one day you might change your mind. And then what happens when you don't change your mind? I think sometimes we just put ourselves in unnecessary positions to have our heart broken when we don't look at those things in the beginning of a relationship to say, hey, are we headed in the same direction? Are we headed for the same goals in mind when it comes to relationships? Because if they're not, I think we sometimes get it mistaken that we can change somebody's mind. And that's not to say that person won't change their mind, but it's a bigger chance that they won't. Or you're going to be fighting and pulling and dragging him to the altar. And that's just not what you want to do. So I have to agree with you on that one. Larry, you was about to say something?
Yes, I probably coming from a different angle here, but I think when we're involved in relationships, I think one of the things that we have problems with is we're looking for someone to be involved with that's going to give us the most less resistance. Okay. And I think that that resistance, the lesser resistance that we're looking for, we're trying to avoid some things that we could be growing on. I think resistance brings forth growth. And some of us is not willing to bend a little bit in our relationship. So you asked the question if I should stay or if I should go. I know when I was in relationships, it was hard for me to break the person's heart. If I know that the person was really into me, and sometimes I would stay longer because I didn't want to break that person's heart. So it's kind of hard. So that kind of tends to where you probably take things a little bit too long and you start diving into other relationships or concerning other people on the side, you end up hurting the person anyways. So, it's best to go ahead and just be upfront and honest in the beginning. And before all of that, I think the point that we may be missing here is, how did I get into this relationship without knowing the answers to these questions beforehand? I think what we need to do is be friends first. I have a platform called the Progression of Intimacy. And in that platform, we talk about the different stages of intimacy, where we talk about being friends first, and then we go into courtship, and then we go into engagement, and then marriage. And we have been bypassing the friendship stage. We just approach someone that looks attractive on their outer, and we just get involved in relationships. Or he smells good, or she looks good, and or she got a good job, or different things of that nature. And then we're gonna come together and just see if it can work. And then all these different things and different scenarios come up along the way. And now I'll be like, maybe I made the wrong decision. And now you're in a hard space and a hard time trying to, let the person down. But these questions have been answered a long time ago. And if you would have answered those questions a long time ago, you could have, saved yourself some headache, and you could have maintained a friendship. If you would have became friends in the first place, and you would have realized that, you're a good friend, but this is not a good, opportunity for us to have a relationship. We can remain friends, but we can have a relationship, and you could do that without breaking someone's heart. You can maintain friendship and not lose a friend, and not, put yourself in a predicament where it becomes difficult.
All right, I got some follow-up questions for that. But Orlando, did you want to speak on that? Like, how hard was it for you to decide that I gotta go. This is not gonna work for me. And then, like, what was like helped you make that deciding factor in any relationship that you may have had where you had to make that decision?
I think one key thing that I heard Larry mention, and I would have to agree, is that foundation, the friend. Being a friend, being friends before you move to different levels, because that foundation is laid there, and you getting to know each other, and that's a key. I think that's missing in most relationships today. Is that foundation of that friend, because a friend you can talk to about anything and everything, or you should be able to if you call yourself, a friend with them. Because different things come up, different things happen. I think a lot of times people's past, their upbringing, things that they encountered growing up, it plays a big factor. And I think the earlier some things, like some of those things, it helps. Not saying it make it easier to address and to be aware, but it kind of answers a lot of questions of things that happen that you see in your relationship, and why. When I'm saying passing, like not having a father, fatherless, that is a major thing, and most people don't realize how important that factor is. Or if in their past they've experienced rape, molestation, all that kind of stuff, that plays a factor. And so that all goes into, like I said, the foundation, and most of that is known and is found out is when you're being a friend.
So let's talk a little bit about the foundation, because Larry talked about being friends first, and reality is a lot of people they skip the friendship phase. I see this guy or I see this girl, they look good, I'm attracted, I'm a holla, with the intentions of I'm trying to get with you. I want to see where this is going to go. I want to date you. I want to spend time with you. I want to talk to you. That whole friend thing on a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times, it's just skipped. So whether you start with the friends or you just start out dating, because even when you start out dating, you kind of are still getting to know each other, still kind of that friendly thing, hopefully. But how do you set the foundation? What are the questions people should be asking? What are the conversations they need to be having so they don't get too far down the road and it becomes a much more difficult decision to make of whether they should stay or whether they should go, because they got so much more feelings wrapped up into it. And I'm gonna get to that part, but I want to start, how do you build that foundation? Where do you start? What are the conversations you should be having when you meet someone?
I guess I'll go ahead and answer that. Just getting a nod because I know you're on mute. Angelia, are you referring to once we're already in the relationship? What questions are we asking?
Well, really both, because the whole thing I'm hearing, which I agree, is that when you meet someone, whether you're attracted to them or not, be their friend. Just be a friend, get to know them. But whether you are in the friendship stage or you kind of skip it a little bit and y'all are spending a lot of time together and it's not just a friend thing, how do you build that foundation? What are the questions that you should be asking, the conversations you should be having to even determine, should I go to the next level, right? Because I think for many people, we get so caught up in our feelings and we're so in love, right? And I just love it when he calls me, and I just love it when she cooks for me, and we just love these things. And she's the one, he's the one, and we get married, and then boom, you're married, up in each other's face every day, and there's some things that you just did not pay attention to, or some questions you just did not, that you should have asked before you said I do, in order to determine whether or not this is going to work on the marriage level. How do you do that? How do you ask those right questions? What should you be looking for? What conversations should you be having? Does that make sense? I know it's a long question.
Yes, a few things here. I would say that if you are in the relationship already, then you've already gone too far. So, because I am a big advocate of being friends first, because in the friendship stage, you can see the authentic person. Because when we get involved in relationships too soon, we tend to put our best foot forward, and we don't see those things that could potentially be deal breakers for us because they're putting their best foot forward. They're wearing clean clothes when you see them. You haven't seen their home yet, so you'll know how filthy it is, just as an example. But I think as far as what questions should we be asking, whether you're in the relationship and you bypass the first day or beforehand, you need to first ask yourself, what is your end goal here? If your end goal is marriage and you want to have a long-lasting relationship and be married, you need to ask yourself, what can you live with? Okay, because and what things are necessary for you to that you can, that what are deal breakers for you and what are not deal breakers for you. You need to know these things before you go into a relationship. Know what you want first, okay? And then when we get into the relationship, you can ask those questions like, credit score, children, marriage, things of that nature. And because I like to tell people this as far as marriage is concerned, what it means for me when you say I do at the altar. This is what it means for me. That I know you well enough, the good and the bad, that I'm sorry, I know enough of you, the good and the bad. If it don't get no better than this, that I'm satisfied with you. Because there's going to be things that they're going to be doing. There's going to be some things. There's going to be some pet peeves of yours. But you have to ask yourself, are these deal breakers for you? And another thing, I don't want to take up too much time, but when I was pursuing my wife, I like to put the person in a lot of different scenarios. I would take movies as an opportunity to see how she would respond in that particular circumstance. We got done watching a relationship movie. Hey, how would you respond to that? Do you think she handled that well, or did you think he handled that well? You want to give yourself as much information about the person so that you can make a concise, well thought out, informed decision. Because like the gentleman said, I believe, you being informed, being logical. Madison, like being logic, using our mentality, using our mind to determine whether or not this is going to jail. And so I'll stop it there because I can keep going. So
Can I speak? So I learned a lot of my courtship and relationship, I wouldn't even say tactics, but strategies from Larry and Anitra and Apostle Benny with their progression to intimacy teaching. So it's really helpful. So to piggyback off of Larry, I kind of think of the friendship stage as kind of like an interview. Not trying to make it formal, but like Larry said, just seeing how you would react in certain situations. How do you react around my friends? How do you react in different settings? How he said he uses movies as opportunities to ask, like, what would you do? I send a lot of memes and jokes like, man, this is crazy, ain't it? Tell me how you think. And to see what they would say, because really, that's the real them. When you see somebody in a friendship aspect and you're around their friends and they're around your friends, they're being themselves. A lot of one-on-one time does set up for it. I'm just trying to impress this person. I want them to see the best side of me. And to me, it's false, because we all put on that false, I want him to like me because I'm trying to get married or I'm trying to get wifed up, when really you putting on those false narratives and those false personalities, it gets exposed eventually. And I think in a friendship setting, you can weed that out. A lot of people don't believe in that, the friendship stage, because they're so excited or want to rush into a relationship. With me, I love that stage. It's the fun stage for me, because once I get these questions answered and we're in a relationship, hopefully we are working towards marriage, because that's the goal if I say yes to a relationship. So I'm sorry, it's an interview process. You made it past the first stage, you're on to the next level. And I think that's how you set boundaries, honestly. Boundaries are important for me. So I think the questions that you ask are just, would you react in this scenario? These are things that are important to me. Are they important to you?
So when you're watching the movies and you're sitting in the memes and stuff like that, do you already have in mind that you're looking for a certain response that is like, okay, and this response is not okay, so I'm about to mark this, and then how are you determining, is it just, I guess I don't want to keep, I have to. Everything I talk about ends up coming back to identity. Do you feel like you really, really know yourself, and that's why you're like, I know what I like, I know what I don't like, I know what is acceptable, I know what my values are or what I value. So therefore, when I'm watching this TV show or this movie or I'm sitting in a meme, this is what I need us to be on the same page. Like, is there ever times like if they're not really giving you the answer you want, you're like, well, I can live with that. Like, kind of just help me out with that. Does that make sense? I know my questions be long-winded.
No, do you want to answer, Larry?
Yeah, I can touch on that. I think it's going to be based upon where that person is as far as their maturity level. I think people grow all the time, so wherever you are at that particular moment, you gauge on what's okay for you and what's not okay, what you can live with and what you cannot live with. And again, it's very hard. Sometimes you don't know what questions to ask, and that's why I think that movies are a good opportunity, because you're already out on a date or what have you. And because you're not necessarily that person is in the situation, or you've seen them interact in that specific scenario, those are the good times where you can try to gauge upon what type of character this person has. So I think it's definitely wise to just know where you are again, and then I think it's important to know if that person, you can start gauging their character and their personality to know, are they a person that's willing to grow as well? Are they stuck in their ways? Are they stubborn? Because if I grow and you're staying stagnant, then that may be a deal breaker for me as well. I need somebody to be open, someone to think that, or to believe that they don't know everything and don't have all the answers, that we're both we're both young, we're just trying to figure this thing out together, and we are willing to listen to one another and hear counsel and things of that nature. That may be a deal breaker for some people. And last thing I'm gonna say too, we talked about the first question about should you stay or should you go. Remember, I talked about people are looking for relationships that have a path to the less resistance, because I myself is not willing to be in, right? So I'm looking for someone that's going to conform to my ways or conform to my thinking. So if I want you to come into my life and you should be with me, well, I need you to see things my way. And I think that's a lack of maturity as well, where a lot of that resistance that you're dealing with does stem from something on the inside that needs to be addressed as well. Why does it have to be your way or the highway? So, people are not willing to bend, and people are not willing to sacrifice and do what's necessary in order for each other to grow. Go ahead, Madison.
I think you wrapped it up. Yeah, you said, mic drop. You did it. You said it.
You're on mute.
Oh, sorry. Joy, we've had these conversations. So I'd like to hear from you, because we have, Joy and I talk a lot, and we have noticed that, just how There's small, subtle things that if you just pay attention to these things when you meet someone, when you're having conversations with someone, as to that leads you into other clues of their personality and who they are. Because again, as Madison said, people are always putting their best foot forward, right? And they are, as I think Pastor Mike says, that this dating is a scripted event. Like, it's scripted. I'm only going to give you my best. I'm only going to say the best. I'm going to do everything I can to woo you into me and keep you there, right? And then when I've got you hook, line, and sinker, and those feelings are all in there, then that's when we start to see some things and it becomes a little bit more difficult. And sometimes that can even happen after a marriage. Everything's good. We're having a good time. We're having fun. This seems to be great. We get married and then boom, things just are magnified that were already there before you got married. So Joy, talk to us about those little things that we should be thinking about and looking at when and how they tell you about somebody's personality.
So first, I'm going to start with yourself. First, I feel like you have to know yourself first. Like, okay, what do you want? What can you put up with? And not just in the other person, but within yourself. Are you willing to change that? Even with that, just even in the friendship stage, kind of be open. Don't look at everything as in, oh, that's a deal breaker. Okay, was that something that just in that moment you didn't agree with it? Like, I like the whole thing on going to the movies, and having a discussion about that, because I feel like to a certain extent you can get how someone feels. But even in that, even in the conversation, if y'all don't agree, is it a big deal that you didn't agree? Or is it, okay, we didn't. We just have to agree to disagree. And that's okay. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. All right. So let's transition just a little bit, because I have to go back to something I think that Larry said, which was when he had to make the decision, he didn't want to hurt people's feelings. And I was listening to something where the guy was talking about, connection versus obligation. And if you all out there have seen the advertisements this week, I kind of did something a little different than a video. And I did scenarios in marketing you all to come talk to us. And still, those of you watching, join in the conversation. But this guy was talking about how you meet someone and you all have talked and you all have decided this is what you want to do, this is where you want to go, y'all seem to have the same vision, but as the time is going, you're realizing that this person's values doesn't align with my values, and the things that I want out of life, they're not really wanting to contribute or do or participate, or they're not falling in line, or we agreed that this was going to be the dream and this is what we're going to build together, and I'm doing all I'm supposed to do to make that dream come true, and they're not doing their part, and then we end up staying with them out of obligation versus connection. I know I'm not connected, our values don't align, who I am and who you are is not aligning, where I'm going with my life and my purpose is not aligning, but yet we stay out of obligation, right? We stay because mom likes her and the family likes her and she gets along with the family, or people are like, y'all make such a cute couple, even though they don't know what's going on behind closed doors. Let's talk about that a little bit. The difficulty of knowing they are not working for you, they are not working for your purpose or the dream you have for your life, but you are staying out of obligation. Why do people do that? Why do we stay out of feeling obligated that we have to remain with this person, whether we've been together for 2-3 years or whatever it may be? I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Go ahead, Lando. Go ahead, get it. Go ahead, get in. Go ahead, get in there. Go ahead, get in here.
I would say, well, let me put a little twist, a little
Go right
spin on
ahead.
it. What if they, what if things are doing this, are good, are moving smoothly, but one of them, that person is, what do you call it? They're scared because they see things working so well because they've never had anything to work well. So they're, what do you call, self-sabotaging. And because of the self-sabotaging, now you're getting into things, but you know, you don't have the person beating on you. The person genuinely love you. The person would do anything for you. Your household is going well, it's flowing, little minor things, you know. But it's going so well that because of their past relationships, they're like, they scared that they don't want you to leave because they've had that person has always left. So they are having it that they do things to try to make you, you know, the self, you know, so that's, you know, my little twist on it, you know.
I'm quiet. I'm just listening. Go ahead. I'm
Um,
listening.
I I agree with that as well, but to me, it also too goes back to, do you really know yourself? Because why do you have to put on a facade for your family, like, or your friends? Y'all don't have to deal with this at the end of the day. You have a set time when you're dealing with it. Unfortunately, if I'm in a relationship, I don't have necessarily a set time. So I think part of it too is just going back to knowing who you are. And when you know who you are, you can make the decision for yourself. And even in making a decision for yourself, if it doesn't work out, you don't have to drag that person through the mud. You know, hey, we just didn't work out, and it's okay.
I like to say something. um, I think it's a good point that Lando made. And I like to put my input on that. And I can help people if they're dealing with that. I think this is essentially what it may be. Because of your past history, your traumas, your experiences, the culture you've grown up in, what people have done, because we have an identity crisis on our hands when it comes to mankind in general. And when you have an identity crisis or when you lack identity, you would tend to create one for yourself because you got to have a reason to exist. I need to know who I am. Why am I here? So you adopt different identities so that you can have some meaning to life. And sometimes that identity that you have adopted could spawn from a negative experience. So, for instance, if you dealt with a father not being in a home, or every time you're in a relationship, the person leaves you. So you may have adopted the identity called "I'm alone in this world," or you might have adopted identity that called nobody loves me, you know. And what happens is when you've adopted that identity, you said this is who I am, or this is what my life consists of. When something that opposes or threatens your identity, that's when you become fearful of it and you tend to try to run from it. So what happens, you need your identity, even if it's subconscious. It could be subconscious in your thinking. So if you've identified with I'm alone in this world, right, even though you still desire a relationship, but all your past relationship people have left you, or walked away from you. And when someone genuine comes into your life because you said I'm alone, you will either sabotage the relationship because I need my identity to be real for me. I'm alone in this world. So if someone comes into my life that's genuine, that really wants to stay, well, it threatens my identity, right? And people don't even understand that they're doing this. So they'll sabotage the relationship or they'll flee from it. So you know that fight or flee. So they'll fight the relationship by sabotaging it, or they'll flee from it and run from it because of the fear of their identity being threatened, or them having to essentially, I like to use the term, having to die to themselves. I have to die to the ideal of me and die to what my truth is. I am working on a book you guys, I'm sorry, I'm about to put a plug in. I am working on a book right now. It's called The Lies Your Truth Told. Okay, it's going to be called The Lies Your Truth Told. And what has happened is we all have our truths, but it ain't the truth. See, we all have different perspectives on lives, and because of our circumstances and our experiences, we have adopted these truths that's really not the truth. Because someone, you know how you have two children being raised in the same household and they have two totally different perspectives on how they was raised. Because people's minds are different. People go through different things and they see things differently. So they've adopted this way of life, and this person adopted this way of thinking, and one another. So you got two different people in relationship who have different truths trying to come together. I'm trying to get you to realize my truth, and you trying to get me to realize your truth. And I ain't willing to die to my truth, and you're not willing to die. So now we're just clashing. So, without going too further into that, I'll go ahead and let somebody else speak on it.
Delano, it's your question. What's your thoughts on it? Because as Larry's talking, I'm just thinking to myself, like, about these self-sabotaging behaviors that people bring into the relationship. And of course, I want to bring it back to, dealing with somebody who is have these self-sabotaging behaviors. And again, the question of the topic of the day: when do I know when I should stay or when I should go? When you have this person who has these self-sabotaging behaviors, is that something that, again, from the first one, I have to love them through this, or I'm gonna set a boundary for myself and I gotta go because you are just doing some things it's just not gonna work. So I mean, but Orlando, your thoughts, your question, your thoughts. Tell us what you're thinking.
I feel passionate that you can love them through it. I'll say that. Because over time they will see, but it does come a time that they still refuse to see. And you have to, once I believe you put it in God's hand, he began to show and orchestrate things. And you sometimes have to walk away to walk back to. Once you've stepped away from it, whether it's together, you've joined, you both have walked away from it, but it can come back, so that's, you have to trust God for that one.
That was actually something we talked about at the end of the last one, which was, if you have someone, y'all went y'all separate ways, but can you ever revisit that? Can you ever, is it a good thing to revisit that relationship, make and see if it can work again? Or is that something that you should not revisit? And of course, everyone was kind of mixed in should you try again? Do you, or you just don't try again? And so I'd like to hear from you all. Like the question was, you've been with someone and then they come back around. Do you base starting something over based upon what they did in the past, or do you see if they've tried to change and revisit again, or you just like, no, I'm done, I don't revisit things from the past?
I can go first if that's okay. This is actually a great question. I think the foundation is important. If you actually built a friendship in the past, I think that has a big part in it, because to me, I don't have any animosity towards you. Like, if we built a friendship and I realized you were a friend and we progressed into a relationship, it didn't work out, we went our separate ways because of whatever happened, and now we've matured, we've been through different circumstances, and we've seen, like, man, I see you have some type of growth, or the things I was tripping on before, I'm not there anymore, I've grown. I think you can definitely mend that relationship, but that's just my opinion. I think there has to be some type of growth that you see in that person, and serious discussions need to be had. But people grow, people change and you see perspectives differently once you step away from a situation. So I think you can. That's my answer.
I'll go next. I agree with Madison as well. I think that you can, just depending upon what it was, but I wouldn't necessarily say go back and just jump into a relationship. I feel like you need to start over with that foundation and do the friendship stage first so you can really see for yourself, okay, have we really grown? So that's my.
I like what Madison said. I just got to say this because I think that was what she said was really good, which was that when you come back, maybe it's you that you've grown and you've gone through something and you've matured and now you see things differently. And now you see that whatever it was that was bothering you, maybe is not really that big of a deal because it was something that you needed to be healed from and something that you needed to overcome. And so what was a barrier in the relationship may not be a barrier anymore, not because of them, but because you've healed and matured and you are different now. So I like that because I think when we asked the question last time, I really wasn't thinking in the aspect of me changing, them changing, not me changing. But yes, we have to look at the changes we need to make within ourselves, right? When we are making decisions, because sometimes again, we get so, when we're broken, we're so emotional and we're making decisions on our emotions that just is not the reality, right? And we just need to be healed from those things. Larry, I think you were about to say something.
I'll just piggyback just a little bit. I think what Madison and Joy said was very good. I one thing I just want to point out too. We talk about how should we come back and revisit a relationship, past relationship. I think sometimes what we may be able to do instead of even walking away from the person is you can maintain a friendship and not be in a relationship. I think that sometimes let's just use that example as I used earlier about the person's identity they have identified with being alone in this world. So when someone comes into their life, they may sabotage their relationship because it goes against their identity. And what happens if you're on the opposing side, if you're with someone who has that identity, and you recognize it because they may not even necessarily know that that's the identity that they've adopted. By you walking away from them, all that does is reinforce that they're already made up mind about what the world consists of, and they stay right where they are. And ultimately it's their own thinking, but you contributed to it. So just like Lando said, he talked about how you can love that person through some things, and I agree with that as well. And you don't have to maintain the relationship; you can maintain the friendship though, because when you stay, it gives them an opposing view of people leave me or people or I'm alone as well. So when you stay, then it forces them to change their way of thinking. The reason why they believe that they're alone is because everybody walk away from them, and that's been their consistent experience. So if you give them a different one, then they have to go back and say, wait a minute, maybe what I've been telling myself ain't true. So because of our own, and like what Joy was saying, she kept going back to us going inside ourselves and understanding who we are. I think that's very important, because if you know who you are and you realize the person's behavior, self-sabotaging behavior, has nothing to do with you. See, that comes with maturity and knowing who you are. It has nothing to do with you. So, but when you take it personal, then you're ready to throw the person away. But when you realize, okay, you just in your condition, this is the way you see the world. I see it. I experienced it with you. So guess what? We're not ready to be in a relationship right now. But what I can do, I'm still going to be here right beside you to walk you through this thing and give you a different experience than what you've been experiencing all your life.
We got a comment. We've been having lots of comments, but I've just been letting y'all talk. But since this comment came up at the end of Larry talking, and it's Miss Anitra, she says, people grow and change. I believe the determining factor of pursuing another relationship with that same person shouldn't be solely focused on who they were, but more so where they are going. Does this person align with my purpose? So I think that's a good segue into another segment of this conversation, which is, because the whole question about whether you should stay or go, I mean, it's really a personal preference of, again, who you are, what you're willing to put up with, what you can't put up with, what you desire, what you don't desire, right? But in the grand scheme of things, when you are trying to build a relationship, the importance of what I want to talk about, how important is it to know your purpose, or at least know, even if you don't know your purpose, just kind of know where you're going in life, and then being able to align that person with where you're going, as far as your hopes, your dreams, your visions for your life. Not the vision of just marriage, but just the vision of your life, period, that this is where I'm going, and making sure that person that you're choosing is aligning with where you're going. Can we talk about that a little bit? Can I get your thoughts on that?
I'll go first. For me, I believe that that is extremely important. And the reason why I say that too is because when you work in the healthcare field, your hours can be crazy. Not just can your hours can be crazy, there are times where you can have stressful days and it's like, okay, you know what? I'm not putting you to the side. I just need a moment. And just knowing that, I feel like it makes a big deal, because if this is my purpose, if this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and you don't agree with that, we're going to constantly clash heads on that, which is going to cause problems in the relationship. So for me, purpose is extremely important.
Let me use that scenario. I don't know if somebody else was about to jump in or not, but so I think that's a good scenario, because when you're in the medical field, there's, especially with what's going on today in this pandemic, there has been a lot of people in the medical field that are working overtime, right? We work a lot of hours, you work a lot of weird hours, different shifts, right? And I think, it becomes important to say, hey, this is what I do. I have work hours. I'm not going to always be available for every phone call, to respond to every text message, or to go out on dates every weekend. And so needing a person that can be okay with that, needing a person who's strong-minded to know that just because I didn't get a response from a text message right away doesn't mean that I'm not loved, right? And so finding someone whose personality and who they are can be able to deal with that. But then what about when you, and I think this goes back to stuff that Larry has said in the last one, you yourself may have a deficit. Yeah, I'm a nurse, not saying you, Joy, but yeah, I'm a nurse, just making up this scenario. And there's something inside of me that I need people to need me, right? So I attract that deficit in me, and I attract people who are needy, and I attract people who are clingy, and I attract a certain type of guy, which kind of goes with maybe the career choice, because as a nurse, the people need me, and it makes me feel good that I'm needed and I'm wanted and I'm doing something. And so we tend to attract that type of person because that's what we're kind of seeking to satisfy within ourselves. But now that career also says, well, even though I need people to need me, dang, I can't have you needing me like that. Right? So how do you even begin to work out those kind of things and be able to, identify those things? I know that's a crazy scenario, but it just came to me. A nurse, they help people, so they need people to need them, but sometimes our personality is the same and we attract those kind of people. And now that person that you're trying to get to fill your deficit, right? This deficit in you is now becoming an obstacle for you. Let's talk about that. What do you do? What do you do?
Well, I guess I can speak on that. Um, Make sure that I ain't forget my thought here. Yes, it could speak to a deficit or an inadequacy within you, where if you feel like, it goes back to identity all over again. If your identity is in something outside of yourself. Meaning, you know, some people. Okay, let's talk about pride one time. Okay, I think all of us are believers on this platform, but pride comes before the fall, right? Let me define pride for you. It's not verbatim, but this is the gist of it. It's when you self-identify, or you achieve extreme pleasure, um, identifying, or you associate your status and your identity with possessions, with your status in life, and or who you associate with, who may have a high status in life. So, like for instance, if my identity is in my career, right? If I feel I have this need to feel needed by people, and that gives me value, it gives me self-value. So now that I have this person that needs to be here, I have this person that needs to be there, and I'm being stretched thin, I'm looked it speaks to your inadequacy, not so. And then if you think about it too, like what if that person, that relationship that you're in, where this man needed you or this woman needed you all the time, but now they began to mature and grow, and now they try to get their own independence. They still want to be in a relationship with you, but they're like, you know what, you ain't gotta cook for me today. You know, I'm gonna cook for you. And you're like, oh no, 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 I want to cook. You know, you won't even allow the person to mature and grow because it poses a threat to your identity once again. I need you to need me. And if you can't need me, then it's not going to work, you know, because now your value and your identity align with being needed. So you may depart from that relationship and go find somebody else that's going to need you, you know, and you just keep repeating this cycle. It goes back to your what Joy was talking about, going inside yourself and seeing who you are, and a lot of what you are is not truly who you are. There's three versions of you. There's who you think you are, who people see you as, and who you truly are. and 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 that's what we need to address, and exposing the subconscious behavior that we may have adopted, and realizing like, man, let me just, why is this making me feel this way? Why am I acting like this? Why do I obtain this certain behavior? And that was need to be addressed. That doesn't say that the other person has issues. But I'm telling you, it's always going to step back right back to you on your own personal growth. That's it.
Dorlando, I saw you shaking your head. What you thinking? Talk to us.
I mean, that was really powerful. Because it went from one stage to the next, and then it took you to you saw the growth, and then when there was no need, that need wasn't there, that was needed, you didn't need that, you know, that particular thing, you know, and then when they wanted to flip it and say, well, let me cook for you, or, you know, that it I mean, it flowed. But what do you do now? You know, how do you come back to that person? How do you do that? You know, I mean, because that's probably the question most say, you know, because you prayed for it, he gave it to you, and then how do you walk it out? But how do you walk it out without that person being offended, or, you know, going back to the identity, you know, I mean, that was just, I mean, that was a powerful a walkthrough, you know, but then we have to ask, what do we do at that point? You know?
Y'all keep preaching. Oh my goodness. This is good. I'm learning stuff.
I know, right? Go ahead.
Woo, let me write that down. No, but that's wow. That transition. You pray for it, God gave it to you. When opposition happens, how do you walk through it? That's good. I mean, I don't even know how to really answer that question, because it's kind of like, at the end of the day, the topic, do you stay? Like, you know, that's what we, you know, came here for. So it's kind of like, if you did pray for it, God put you in a position to where you saw the challenges and the obstacles. And what Larry said earlier, like we tend to take the easy road. We don't want that friction. And I think that, you know, pressure busts pipes, but at the same time, iron sharpens iron. And I think you need that. And I think that opposition, those obstacles happen so you can work through that. So when you do get through, you can actually be in a relationship, a healthy relationship that'll lead towards marriage. So even now, as I'm talking, I'm actually getting a new perspective. Like, sometimes opposition and obstacles are good. Like, it breaks you through things. So when you get over that hump, you're a better person. And I feel like if I've been through that with you, I've learned something, I grew. Maybe God took us, like separated us, and we came back and grew. I'm gonna try to walk through it if we did all that. But that's just my opinion. So
this is good though, because I actually wrote this down from the last one and I wanted to talk about this, and I think this is another good segue. I wrote down, convert all stumbling blocks into stepping stones. Someone on the last panel said something about converting stumbling stocks into stepping stones, right? So you prayed for it, you got it, you have opposition. And I think what we have to learn is, in relationships, there's going to be opposition, because how else are you going to learn and grow and then go to the next level, not only in your being, but in the relationship? You know, we always keep taking the easy way out. We'll never get anywhere. We're just going to stay where we are because everything is just too challenging. It's too much, right? And so we have to learn to be able to, when we come across those oppositions, to resolve them. And I just think that one of the things that is missing in a lot of people's skill set is conflict resolution and being able to communicate effectively, right? And then and make decisions. So not only do we need conflict resolution externally, but we need to learn conflict resolution internally, right? Because everything that is a conflict or is against what we originally thought doesn't have to take us out mentally and emotionally. There's a process of going through and rational it out within yourself, and then being able to rational it out with someone else. And I think that's the big piece that's missing in a lot of relationships, is conflict resolution, and being able to know that sometimes it's more than one way to skin a cat. There's more than one way to cook the roast. I don't have to put it in the crock pot, right? I can roast it in the oven. I could decide to put it on the grill if I wanted to. It's my choice, but it doesn't make it wrong. It's just different. And so we don't learn how to blend our ideologies when we're in a relationship. It's either this or that. And we want to stick and hold on to our upbringing and what we were taught and what we know, and not decide for ourselves. Again, decision making, being able to go through the motions and decide for ourselves, does that even work for me? Does that even serve me where I am right now, right? Or is there another way to look at it? No, there's other ways to look at stuff, and we always want to think that our way is the best way, and our way may not be the best way. It might be one of the ways, but it may not be the best way. We have to learn how to let go, right? Let go of those expectations that we have and these ideologies that we have that keep us from growing with that person that we've been praying for. So when the question is, well, what do you do? I think that at some point you got to give it a try. You got to make it work. You just can't run at the first sign of opposition or the first sign of this is not what I thought it was going to be, and be able to come right and talk about it. That's my thoughts. But I'm the facilitator. I can't do all the talking. What's up, Larry? I know you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I'll do a little couple of cents out there. A couple of things. We talked about a few things. First of all, you said iron sharpens iron. That's absolutely correct. This is how you become perfected when you are faced with resistance. Say for instance, we use this as an example all the time. When people ask for patience, Lord, give me patience. I need patience, right? Well, you know how you get patience? You get patience by being put in opportunities where it makes you have to exercise patience consistently. So you got to be in scenarios to where it's like, okay, it's an opportunity for me to exercise patience. It's an opportunity for me to exercise patience, and that's when you start to developing patience. It just doesn't fall out the sky like some fairy dust. You're just not gonna get patience overnight, and that's with everything. And I want to touch on this as well because we're talking about relationships here. Do you realize that you're going to be attracted to what heals you? You're going to be attracted to the very opposition that's necessary for you to sharpen that iron. You're going to be attracted to the very thing that you're dealing with that you may not even known that you was dealing with all the time, so that it can be perfected. And like what Madison was saying, you're going to have to instead of like moving on to the next man, because I'm telling you, it's gonna keep coming up every single time because God trying to get something to you. God trying to get something to you. And what your problem is, I ain't talking to you, Madison. I'm talking to the one in front of you. But but I start preaching here. But what you're trying to avoid is death. Okay. What Let me tell you what true love is. This is my perspective, y'all. I don't know everything. I'm just giving you my perspective, what I do understand, and what I think is what reigns true for me. True love and acceptance is your death to one another. When we can die to ourselves, right? Because again, we're talking about that truth again. If this is my truth and this is my perspective, this is what happens when I interact with people like this. And we have our perspective like, oh, he light skinned, he tall, this is how all light skinned people act. That's your truth, right? But your truth is a lie. So what happens? So when you come encounter with some people that contradict your truth, it's an opportunity for you to die to it. And that's how you got to look at it. Every time me and my wife may have something that we need to discuss, she may say something, or a friend or a family. This encompasses all relationships, friends, family, job relationships, all relationships. It's all an opportunity for you to change your way of thinking and analyze yourself. Every time you get that notion, like, I'm about to cuss this person out, or you get that notion to say, I'm walking away from this person, I get this notion, you got to go back inside of something, analyze, what is that? Why am I responding? Why am I having this feeling? So that I can address it within myself, because it's going to come up every single time. You got to understand this as well. I'm sorry, y'all. You got to understand this too. A lot of what people say to you or do to you has nothing to do with you. Has nothing to do with you at all. But the problem is, excuse me, you perceive their actions and behavior as personal, and it speaks to your self-value and your self-worth. So you take it personally, and now you feel the need to attack, or you feel the need to flee. But all it is an opportunity for you to die to yourself, an opportunity to change your thinking so that you can mature more and more. And then when you come across a new relationship, man or female, and they're having these things that you just got healed from, or they possess a quality that you just got healed from, and you don't give them what you think they deserve. I'm gonna cut your behind out for saying that. Or I'm gonna do this for you for saying this or doing this and all this other stuff. What happens is it makes them see the foolishness in their own behavior when you don't give them what they expect in return of your response to their own behavior. Like, and I'm telling y'all, man, I'm telling you, if we could just change some of the things that we're doing, we'll see. If we can change ourselves first, we'll see change in people. And you know how the people talk about how kill them with kindness. That's what you're doing. You're killing them with kindness. See, they used to getting the response out of you when you say this, when they say that. They used to getting the response out of you when they behave this way. And if you don't feed into it, then it makes them like, what's the point of it all? You know what I mean? So change you. Stop trying to change people, but in changing you, you can potentially change people. But at the end of the day, if you're content with who you are, and you're content with how you behave, and and how you respond to people, their behavior won't affect you as much. That's it.
Okay, so I got one more question, and then we're going to wrap this up. Because Larry and Orlando, they just keep saying stuff that's on my question list. So this is my next segue. All right, this is actually coming out of part one a discussion we had in part one, and Larry just kind of mentioned it now about separating the person from the behavior, because we are not our behavior. And sometimes who we really, or Larry says, what is it? Is how you see yourself, how people see you, and then the real you, right? And so the real you, who God created you to be, is not necessarily who's showing up. And some of these behaviors that we have are coming from some experiences and stuff from our past that we have clung to, right? And one of the questions that I had was, because Larry, you said to separate the condition from the person and still love the individual, right? And so my question was, at what point do you consider a boundary? Because we talked about boundaries last time, that you love the person, but you got to set boundaries, right? And just because I love you doesn't mean that I have to condone what you're doing. It doesn't. If I know you have a problem, and if I know you are an alcoholic, right? I can still be your friend. I'm just not gonna pour you a drink. Right? So, but so you set your boundaries for whatever they may be. And at what point do you consider a boundary of you can't come through this door for the sake of the children's well-being? I want to talk about this because we have a lot of single mothers out there, a lot of single fathers out there nowadays as well. And you're dating, or maybe you having to deal with baby daddy, baby mama, whatever. Y'all in a relationship, and it's just not really good. You got children that you have to think about now. So as an adult, a person may be mature enough to handle long suffering, but what about the toxic or unhealthy behavior is doing to the children? Shouldn't we try to limit this dysfunction when we can? Now, if it was just me, then maybe I can love you through this. But now I got children that I have to think about, who is seeing this every day. I mean, what are you all's thoughts on when children are in the dynamics of you deciding whether or not you should stay or go?
Um, I feel like it's kind of difficult to to answer that for me. And the reason why I say that is because I'm not one to necessarily expose my child to everything. And if I think about him when it comes down to my relationship, some stuff I'm definitely looking at in the friendship stage. So that way my he doesn't have to experience that. Um that, that's pretty much all I can say about that, because that's all I really have on it.
I guess I can say a little something. I watched an episode of Beyond Love the other day. It was very, very good. Um, where Iyanla told the young lady, if I remember correctly, it was concerning her child, her daughter. I think that's what it was. It was with Lisa Ray. If y'all go back and watch that, it was very, very good. She talked about um, her mother. It was her mother and Lisa Ray and her mother there, and the mother had her experience with her husband, which is Lisa Ray's father. That's one experience. And Lisa Ray's experience with her father is a totally different experience. But the mother was trying to dictate or limit her, or she was kind of trying to sabotage the relationship with the daughter because of her relationship with her husband, right? But her daughter sees her experience with her father is totally different from your experience with your husband. See what I'm saying? So when it comes to, and you're trying to get your child to see your husband as such or whatnot, and then you try to turn your child against the husband, all these different things. We need to talk about the mother and the daughter. This mother saying we need to uh, 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 throw your daddy away because he do this to me. No, that's her. Let her have her experience with her daddy. You know what I mean? So as far as the children is concerned, we need to. I think it's better for us to We can create boundaries. Look, I'm not in a relationship with you. You go ahead with your dad, and you have your experience with your father. My experience with him is something totally different, and vice versa. You know, I don't want to just say this is a female issue and not a male issue. It's the same same scenario for both. And another thing too, a lot of people, ask yourself this: a lot of people stay in relationships because they feel like they deserve this type of treatment. That speaks to your self-worth as well, right? The reason why you won't move on to another new relationship is because you feel like you deserve it. And that goes down to having to forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for thinking this way about you. Forgive yourself for staying in that abusive relationship. Forgive yourself for making these poor decisions, right? Because you think you're so unworthy, you think you're so invaluable, that now you in this abusive relationship and you think that's all that you deserve. You don't deserve no better than this. And that's another thing, going back to what Joy talked about. She kept saying, we have to start analyzing ourselves, start thinking, know thyself. I mean, I think that's very important. Figure out where that's still from so they can be healed in that area. And y'all can keep going, man. I don't want to take up all the time. Go ahead.
You all right? Do you have anything else to say? Because I'm actually going to start wrapping it up. I keep trying to keep things to an hour, but then conversations just don't always work that way. But did you have something additional you wanted to say, Larry, before I do wrap things up?
So wait, before you do, can I just say too one thing? Because I've seen that episode of Iyanla that Larry was talking about. One thing too that I got out of that was that the mother was trying to make the daughter definitely have the same experience with her father that she did. And sometimes we have, as parents, you have to step back. Like, okay, yeah, he may have been a horrible husband to you, but to me, he was an excellent father. And that's okay. My experience does not have to be the same as yours. And then on top of that, she chose to stay. So even that relationship was toxic. Like, she left home and got married to her husband because she wanted to get out, not thinking like, oh, well, I want to get out of this situation, of my home situation. Now I'm getting married, and they did not have a child in it, but a child before the relationship, but in the relationship, a child was created. So now my mistakes are affecting my child.
So I think that's a good point, because there are times that people make a horrible spouse or partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever you want to call them. And they're a great father or a mother. The way they treat you is not the way they treat the children, right? I may be dogging him or her out and I'm cheating, but I'm there for my children. I tuck them in at night. I read them bedtime stories. I make sure they're fed. I take them on outings. We have nice conversations, right? And so sometimes we want to look at how they treat us. And because the relationship between us may not be good, doesn't mean that it's not good with the children. And we have to be able, again, to separate ourselves and take ourselves out of the situation. And I think it's very, very important what you all said, is not to deflect how you're feeling and what you're going to onto your children, because what they're getting is a different experience. Just like Larry said earlier, that you can have 2, 3, 4 children in the same household, same parents, and their experience and their perspective of how they were raised and what they learned is totally different. You come out with 4 different personalities, all coming out of and sometimes beliefs coming out of the same household. So just because that person is not treating you the way you want to be treated does not mean that it is a bad thing for the children. But I thank you all so much. Monica says we should make these 2 hours. Monica, we cannot make these 2 hours. People don't want to watch 2 hours on a replay. They might watch 2 hours on a live, but they don't want to watch 2 hours on a replay. All right, but I want to thank you all. I think this has been a really good part 2. because we just kind of took this conversation to the next level in should you stay or should you go? I have to honestly say, I don't think it's necessarily a black and white answer. So, for you all that are listening, I hope you weren't looking for an absolute answer of whether you should stay or whether you should go. It's really going to be based upon your identity, your personality, and again, what you like, what you don't like. It's going to be based upon what you're capable of dealing with and not capable of dealing with. It's going to be down to your skill set. Can you resolve conflict? Have you learned how to effectively communicate? Have you learned how to make decisions for yourself, right? And then we've got to learn, but we do have to learn how to say no. We do have to learn how not to stay out of obligation. You know, if this is not serving you, if it's not serving you in your purpose and your vision and your dreams, and you're not married, you can easily go. But when you are married, that's going to be probably a much harder decision on making. And again, just because you have opposition doesn't mean that you're supposed to run. We have to take those oppositions, we have to take those stumbling blocks and use them as stepping stones to get to the next level in who we are and the next level in our relationship. We have to get away from just running. I think that's what we do a lot of times is we run. I don't know if it's because of our society, that's what we're taught. I don't know if it's people's upbringing, if it's a cultural thing, but a lot of us run at the sign of opposition, at the sign of conflict. I don't want to deal with it. And we don't want to put in the work, but we have to start putting in the work, not just within ourselves, but within a relationship. But I do want to say, as I'm thinking, because I was thinking about the last episode, our panelist Chris talked about how he was running from himself. He didn't want to put in the work. He didn't want to do the work. He didn't want to talk to someone and work out some things. And so he was running from one relationship to the next relationship to the next relationship, trying to avoid the work that he needed to put into himself to make something work in a relationship. So put the work into yourself to make your relation. We gotta stop running, people. We gotta stop running from ourselves. We gotta stop running from opposition. We gotta stop running from those things that God is putting in front of us to help us grow and help us prepare to get to the next level. I'm going to open it up. Is there any of you that have any closing remarks that you want to give, a message that you want to give the people before we go? Any last words?
I did want to leave something for the people. I think this is very important to understand too, in the context of what we've been talking about this past hour and 20 minutes. But I think if you're in a relationship and each other is having opposition with one another, okay, I want you to realize that because of your truth, as a result of your experiences, trauma, culture, what have you, okay, and you've developed this truth about who you are and what life consists of, and you're trying to get someone to conform to your ideology, to conform to your thinking and conform to your truth. Essentially, what you're trying to do is you're trying to get them to die to you. Okay, I want you to see things my way. I want you to realize my truth. I want you to do it the way I see it. And what happens when you're trying to get them to essentially die to you, then their truth, their realization, their ideals are threatened once again. And what it sounds like to them subconsciously is that you're trying to kill me. You're trying to kill who I am by me conforming to you. Well, this is my truth, and I don't want to die to my truth, and you don't want to die to your truth. But this is what I recommend. This is what I suggest to you. If you just create a loving environment to where you can choose to die to yourself, and what you'll do essentially is continue to love them through their condition, and instead of you trying to get them to die to you, you provide an environment for them to choose to die to themselves. And that's the difference. Allow them to make the adjustment instead of you trying to kill them. Stop trying to kill the man. Stop trying to kill the woman. Make an opportunity for them to die to themselves. And that's a choice that they have to make. And if they're not willing alter and change their behavior and change the way they are along with your change, then you got to change too now. Don't be trying to get somebody else to change and you ain't willing to change. But if they're not willing to die to themselves, you're not seeing growth and maturity develop there, then make a decision for yourself. Can I stay in this relationship? Can I deal with this for the rest of my life? And and those are the type of things that if we could just try that approach, I think that we may have some better and long-lasting relationships. That's just one of the things of many. So that's what I want to leave you guys with. Die to yourself, create a loving environment so other people can choose to die. Kill them with kindness, y'all. Love them through the condition, separate the condition from the person, and just don't throw people away so willy-nilly. Just don't throw them away is all I ask. All right.
Yes, and join us on Monday. Think outside the red box, where we're actually going to be talking about die to yourself. That is our topic on Monday. Thanks, Larry, for that plug. Think outside the red box. We're here every Monday at 7:30. And so we're going to be talking about the exact thing that Larry just said about dying to yourself. So please join us on Monday. Any other closing words from the rest of the panelists before I close this out? Nope. All right. Well, I want to thank them so much. Orlando, Joy, Larry, Madison, you all have been great. Woo! I think this has been a great conversation. I appreciate you. I appreciate my audience out there for tuning in on a Saturday morning or early Saturday afternoon and joining in the conversation. I appreciate you so much. Again, always, 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 always know that Becoming a Being is here to help you heal. All right. Emotional healing, mental healing, so that you can grow in your being and flourish in life and live life abundantly. So look forward to the things that we got coming up here soon to help you with your emotional healing, to help you with learning conflict resolution and effective communication in relationships. So I thank you so much. I appreciate you all. And as always, be unbothered. Have a good one. We'll see you next time.